Good afternoon, dear viewers. I am in Lisbon right now, and if you're wondering specifically where I'm in a gondola. Anywho, this is not the only flying I'll be doing. Oh my god, that is a terrible joke. Anyways, today we'll be taking Air Portugal's A330neo from here in Lisbon over to Toronto. Now this is going to be an 8-hour flight on a pretty much brand new product, so I am pretty excited about this.
Today's flight takes us on a 3,560-mile hop over the Atlantic, the Maritime provinces, and into Toronto. And the entire flight will take about 8 hours.
Once I get out of this thing, let's head to the airport.
Getting to Lisbon's International Airport is quite quick and inexpensive. Whether you take the metro, fixed-rate taxis, or buses, the proximity of the airport to the city makes it quite convenient. In my case, the metro puts me just outside the doors into Terminal 1. Now, this building is getting a little tired with an architectural style that clearly hasn't aged too well, but it's clean, well lit, and has helpful and clear signage. Air Portugal's check-in area comprises of dozens of self-serve kiosks and baggage drops. Although they were priority check-in desks, the lines there were longer than the common bag drops, so I opted not to use them. As I mentioned before, one boon for this airport is that there are helpful signage everywhere, meaning it was hard to get lost. Fast track security was available for those traveling in business class and your usual crowd of credit card holders, but more bizarrely, the couple in front of me was able to use fast track because of a coupon they received from an Italian restaurant. What a time to be alive. A pity though, they said the food there wasn't all that great. Once airside, it was evident that the airport infrastructure has not quite kept up in pace with Portugal's tourism boom. Much like Heathrow, boarding gates are not announced until close to departure time, meaning passengers would wait in central seating areas, surrounded with duty-free stores and the temptation to quell boredom with consumption. The largest waiting area is the central atrium, and located upstairs are the two lounges. One of them being the TAP Premium Lounge, and the other one is confusingly named the ANA Lounge. You would assume that this would be for all Nippon Airlines, but trickery, it is not. Instead, it's the Airport Authority's lounge, contracted out to various airlines and other programs. We'll be visiting the TAP Lounge today, which is further down the hall and is the Star Alliance Gold Lounge in this airport. Having spent 10 hours getting sunburnt in town today, I headed straight for the buffet. The hot food spread was pretty good and had enough variety to satisfy everyone. There were espresso machines, your standard array of soft drinks, teas, and alcoholic beverages. There was also a full-service bar with a selection of beers, wines, liqueurs, and cocktails. As I had missed breakfast, I opted for some of that, which was immediately followed up by some lunch. The food was fresh and hot and received no complaints from me. This being Europe, football dominated most of the TV screens, and if that isn't to your taste, you had a selection of 5 magazines to kill time with, and some local periodicals. Also available was this nap room with lounger-style napping chairs. The walls were soundproof, but the lights were not dimmed, which made it more difficult to fall asleep. Fortunately for myself, I had an eye mask from the last flight. If liquid sleep is more on your level, they have shower rooms. Someone told me I make stupid faces in my videos. Anyways, towels, shampoo, shower gel, and combs and shaving kits are all provided. The showers were kept immaculately clean and dry, and it was overall a great experience. Before we leave the lounge, I like to point out that TAP had this display full of merchandise and memorabilia pertaining to the airline. The retro merchandise was especially cool. And in case you didn't have anywhere to put the merchandise you buy, they also sold a suitcase. Alright, let's go clear passport control and get on our flight. Once again, the helpful signage means it's quite impossible for you to get lost. If you don't have an EU passport but you do have a biometric passport from any of these countries, you may use the automated systems, which didn't work. So I had to find a human. How primitive. Eventually, I got to my gate and got a first glimpse of today's ride, a Airbus A330-900 new engine option with the raccoon windscreens. After boarding a kindergarten's worth of toddlers, boarding for business class commenced. The cabin was only half full today, so there wasn't that much of a crowd when boarding. My original seat was 9 Charlie, which was at the back of the plane, but I had pretty much the entire left side to myself, so I moved around quite a bit. Here is my original seat in all its glory. It is an odd numbered seat, so it's closer to the window than the aisle, and speaking of window, it is missing one. As you can see, the even number seats are closer to the aisle. It's the same story for the middle seats, with the even number ones further apart and the odd ones closer together. Okay, let's do a seat tour. Now be warned, if you do have a window seat, it is a little tight to get in here. Before we start, let me just fix my shutter speed to get rid of this flicker. Ah, that's much better. Okay, let's get started. In front of you is the in-flight entertainment screen. Beside that is a coat hook. Moving on, we have a side console and a little storage bin. You can close the door of this thing by sliding it shut. And it opens the same way it closes. Inside, you will find a hook for headphones and a magazine rack in the back that also comes out like this. That's quite edgy. Below the table are the seat controls. They allow you to adjust pretty much anything and are quite intuitive. Below the armrest is this little cubby bin. If your clothes have loose pockets, it's a good idea to empty the contents of them into a bin like this. This upper armrest comes down like this to give you a little bit of extra room when you're sleeping. And down here is where you'll find your power outlet, USB outlet, and surprisingly headphone jacks. I am guessing that this is where they want you to put your shoes, but it's quite small. Going back to the IFE screen, it comes out like this. The bevels are massive, the resolution's pretty good, and it's a decent 15-ish inches. Stowing that for now, let's check out the tray table that's underneath it. If you pull on this little tab here, it comes out as such and rotates to give you a working surface or dining surface. It's not very big, but it is quite sturdy. It also means if you just try really hard, you can get out during meal times. Alright, let's put this back and move on. The footwell goes quite deep, but especially if you're on the window seat, there's not much width to it. There is quite a little bit of height though, so if you sleep on your side, this wouldn't be much of an issue. And finally on the window side, you have a raisable armrest and another armrest underneath it for when you're sleeping. One observation I made was that the packing foam used when this plane was delivered were not completely removed. At the time of this flight, this plane was only 5 days old, and there was a lot of factory foam still attached to the fixtures, something you don't see every day, and something that is really cool, at least to me. Something less cool is the fact that there were no individual air nozzles anywhere on this plane. One more thing, if you are sitting in a window seat with a missing window, this does mean that the wall is quite close to your head, so you can bump into it if you're not careful. And if your head is as big as mine, that is an actual hazard. Overall, this was a very well designed cabin, comfortable seats with direct all access for every seat, a sophisticated color palette, and a good deal of privacy. All the check marks for a good business class hard product. The flight attendant came around with a selection of pre-departure drinks. I opted for orange juice, while water and sparkling wine were also available. Alongside came a pack of nuts and raisins. Soon we were pushing back, and although it was rainy, thanks to the fact that I can manually focus this lens, we can just disregard the rain droplets as stylization. With not much to see outside the window, let's turn our attention instead to the amenity kit. It comes in this colorfully designed fabric pouch. It feels thick and sturdy, worthy to be used time and time again, and here are the contents of said pouch. I like how utilitarian this kit is. It does away with the unnecessary and provides amenities you can use on the flight itself. I especially like this perfume pack, which is to be placed inside your luggage to keep all your clothes smelling great. What a fantastic idea. Next, let's check out the menu and wine list, which were handed out before takeoff. The first page of the menu introduced the Taste the Stars program, a highlighted selection of the menu featuring signature dishes. TAP, being the Portuguese flag carrier, appropriately carried a great selection of wines, liqueurs, and digestives, which of course included port. After a very sticky day, the hot towel was a very welcome sight. Apparently, TAP has an exclusive gin deal with this distillery. Promoting local businesses is always a welcome sight, and in a gin and tonic was very refreshing and went down very well. The seafood canapé was a different story. While the crab meat and the garnish were light and refreshing, the bread was really dry and stale, probably because of the refrigeration process. The soup was lukewarm, and the cold cuts and preserved fruits weren't exactly very flavorful. They didn't taste bad by any means, they just weren't very memorable. I chose the pork terrine for some Portuguese flavor, but I'm sorry to say that it had none whatsoever. It was overcooked in the heating oven, rendering it very dry, which kind of ruined the seasoning. I don't think they considered the inconsistencies of the preparation process in the test kitchen. Finally, I asked for the chocolate ice cream, thinking that there's no way anyone can fuck this up, and apart from the lid being kinda difficult to open, the ice cream itself wasn't bad at all. It was soft, creamy, and not too sweet. Meal over, it is now time for the mandatory bathroom tour, and there I am once again looking like an idiot. Down here is the sink, and on top of the sink is the tap on Tap Portugal. Next to that is the soap dispenser. This shelf over here has a bag of wet towels and sick bags on it, and over here is a diaper change station. Overall, a very standard bathroom, albeit very small. There's very little room in here at all. Although it was kept very clean throughout the flight, so no complaints from me. Let's get out of here now. I forgot to mention that noise-canceling headphones were handed out. These were comfortable, but the sound quality wasn't that great. Let's check out the in-flight entertainment system now. First, you are prompted with a simple choice between Portuguese and English. No Spanish, nor French, nor Mandarin, because none of those languages matter, obviously. Having been sufficiently blinded by the intro screen, you are led to the main menu. The user interface is friendly and big, but not very straightforward. More on that later. The screen, while responsive, does require you to press down quite hard, and there are two versions of the in-flight map. Obviously, I chose the kids version. It turns out that this is just an interactive map with short blurbs on the animals indigenous to each part of the world. Needless to say, I was entertained for hours by this alone. Conversely, the adult map offers an overview of cities around the world, describing the best places to visit and eat. Unfortunately, the map wasn't very comprehensive, as none of the cities in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea were mentioned. How lackluster. The system did render a rendition of the aircraft, and allowed multiple perspectives with this rendering. There were no outboard camera feeds to view, only virtual ones. The most confusing part of the system are the tiles and their names. Instead of having one place where you can find all the video and audio content, they are spread out all over the place, with tiles linking to movies, the main menu at the top, and subcategories on another menu at the bottom. Sometimes the menus did different things altogether, and it took longer than needed to get to the content. Content-wise, there were a few new releases and classic movies, but most of the material fell under the Portuguese spectrum. If you plan on watching films or TV on the flight, I would recommend you bring a few of your own. There was Wi-Fi on board, which was a decent speed. There's even free messaging with messaging apps including iMessage and Facebook Messenger. This was exclusive to the Neo fleet. There were other packages available, but not even the most expensive option allowed you to stream videos. With a 200 megabyte cap at €25, it really wasn't a good deal. Also, if there was a cabin announcement, your browser would display this annoying overlay. I really didn't see the point of this. A little bit frustrated with the entertainment system and the Wi-Fi, and feeling quite exhausted, I decided to get some sleep. A little bit later, the cabin lights were dimmed to this red hue, which was actually very pleasant. Sleeping on my side, it was actually surprisingly comfortable. Even though the seat is quite narrow, sleeping on my side proved to be very comfortable. I got a solid 4 hours without waking up and felt surprisingly refreshed. The seat did not feel cramped at all. I could have easily slept for 4 more hours. At this point, we were over the Gulf of St. Lawrence, above the maritime provinces of eastern Canada. The cabin was quiet as many of the other passengers had also decided to take a nap. Just as we were approaching the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, a second meal service was served. This time, the food consisted of fruits, cheese, and cold cuts. Constituting as my breakfast, I was a lot more content with this meal than the last. The fruits were fresh, while the cheese and meats were light. After the meal service, the starboard side of the cabin was treated to an unobstructed view of the setting sun, and I realized that the business class cabin was a lot fuller now. The purser later explained to me that they moved children traveling alone from economy to business class after the first meal service, so that the kids can get some quality sleep and disembark first, all at no extra charge if there are empty seats. I thought this was a fantastic idea, and TAP Portugal immediately won all the brownie points from me. A little while later, we once again approached Toronto's Pearson Airport. I thought I'd use this time to gather my thoughts on this flight. As we were boarding, a couple jokingly remarked that TAP stood for Take Another Plane, as it is often perceived as a leisure airline with service catered for budget travelers. While I think it is still a holiday-oriented airline, as Portugal itself is very much still a tourism-based country, it doesn't mean TAP offers a lacking premium product. TAP does a lot of things very well, including the seat, the lounge, and the service, which was both very friendly and fast. The food wasn't all that great, but it wasn't below average, and while I had a few annoyances with the IFE, the screen was big, bright, and packed a lot of pixels. Overall, the airline left a good impression on me, and I wouldn't hesitate to fly with them again. I'll just be sure to download a few seasons of a TV show first. Once again, thanks for watching this video. I really hope it was either entertaining or informative, or maybe even both. Please consider subscribing, as I have a great many more trips to share. See you next time.